Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here with Dennis Freeberg, and we're going to do um, an after-action report for ASL Scenario Starter Kit Scenario 16, Legio, Patria, Nostra. Dennis and I have been playing quite a bit together. I'd say we're both very evenly matched, and in this game, um, I'm the defending. Dennis was the defending Germans, and I was the attacking Free French. Um, so how do I meet Dennis? I think I met Dennis on. Dennis, how do we meet? I know we do have a mutual friend, David Garvin, but
Yes.
um,
I thought I just put out a.
oh yeah, a game. An opponent wanted. Uh, uh, an opponent wanted uh, message, right? Dennis, you still with me? Oops, I think
Yeah,
he's.
I'm here.
Okay, all right, you're still there. Right, yeah, you put out a message that you wanted an opponent. I joined you, and then we've been playing every Friday, late afternoon or early evening ever since. Correct?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so
With the Atlantic time zone, I find it a little difficult to find opponents.
I'm not too far. I'm about an hour
No, you're not too far.
back from you. All right, so let's go on with the AAR. My initial thoughts, and then perhaps your initial thoughts. So my initial thoughts were that I would attack with two different fire groups stacked side by side with my leaders. And at that point, I would be able to combine 16 firepower factors with a net -1 DRM, because if there's two leaders and two stacks, they can apply the leadership DRM, where if you have um, only one leader, then then you can't use the leadership DRM. And the purpose of that task force was to join up with the 9-2 leader, which would be up on top of the board, and then subsequently work themselves downward or westwardly to meet their objective of capturing four, not three, but four multi-hex buildings. The remainder of the force would occupy the German flank. Now, when I went actually to set up the my men, I found it very troublesome and almost impossible to leave them without a leader that was capable of um, of rallying them. So you will see what happened to my plan. And your initial thoughts, Dennis?
Well, we had just played this, and I had played the attacking Free French, and I was able to get basically around the top and kind of almost come in from behind the building you were defending, and so I wanted to make certain that both flanks were heavily defended, even if the center was a little weak. Because if you're able to get around my troops, at that point, the town you're in allows you to pretty much roam free in the back, and that would spell pretty much doom for any defenders. So I definitely wanted to make certain that I had strong flanks and hoped that the center could hold long enough. And as it was, you kind of initially didn't really go for the center. You went straight at the flanks, and that actually worked out to my benefit. Um, the the stone buildings that I was in obviously protected me pretty well, and I was able to have big enough fire groups to initially DM your one leader that was coming over the top, and then put a little bit of a dent into your attack on the lower attack coming in at the bottom of the screen. So, so it actually worked out fairly well for me, and that bit of how should we say abuse I gave you at the beginning really helped in the long run. If there'd been another round, I certainly would have been kicked out of a lot more buildings. So that actually worked out fairly well. That was so my learning experience on the first game gave me some insights into what I wanted to do as the defender.
Okay, so let's go play by play. Starting
Yep.
with the Free French turn one. Uh, Dennis, I'm sharing my screen with you. Can you see what's going on
Yes, I
with the
can.
pictures? Okay, great. So this is my plan and how it went wrong. I divided the leaders instead of combining them into two different fire groups. You of all the leaders you could have DM'd, you DM'd the 9 minus 1 that was advancing to meet what I like to call the done or the 9 minus 2 task force in a
Yes.
fortified building. Uh, I did manage to DM your crew with the AT gun. However, you had those guns trained in the direction that the Free French would approach, and you were able to do harm. Although for the AA gun, we weren't using the IFT equivalent, we're using the 20 mil chart. Um, so you see there, I'm taking the flanks, I'm ignoring the center, which is weak, and to give some credit to me, in this game there is an SSR. Because of the rain, you have to pay an extra one movement factor to move into higher terrain, and to move into higher terrain with cover, that makes it impossible without CXing. Well, excuses, excuses. Now let's go to your turn one.
Yeah, and that was another reason why I did leave the center weak because I remember, from the first game, actually advancing into the center was pretty tough. Um, and like you say, I had set up my guns right at the beginning to be able to fire at any movement coming in along those sight lines.
Hmm.
Um, and I was kind of relying on the high morale of the eight to be able to soak up the hits. Well, with the AT, that didn't work too well. The AA gun, it did. The AT gun, it was just there was just too much counter fire, and that was really hurting.
Okay.
I like you say though, I was able to DM that 191 leader, and that really helped because then I was able to keep them DM'd for another turn after that.
Okay. Let's turn to Free French turn two. So finally, I to be honest with you, I'm not sure if this is uh, turn turn two or three, but as you can see, I finally had given up and said, although I didn't have to route the leader from building S8, I did because I wanted to free him from being DM'd. I wanted him to rally at all cost. So rather than betting on rolling a four or five or less, um, I wanted to be able to roll nine or less, get him up, and move him across the dun so I can join him, form a fire group with a 9 minus 2 leader and a 9 minus 1 leader, each in a separate fire group but adjacent to each other. They exact a minus 1 modifier, leadership DRM, and that immediately reduces your coverage from a plus 3 to a plus 2, and it gives me a bigger probability with an average shot to do some damage. And then trying to advance onto your 8-0 leader on my right flank was virtually impossible, and I then decided to divert forces and gradually shift them up the center. All right, your turn two.
Yeah, in retrospect, my biggest error, I think, was thinking I could break your done group there. I wasted a lot of shots going after him. He's in a fortified building. He's a 9 minus 2 leader. So you've got to have a hell of a shot to really do any damage to him. And I mean, yeah, I was able to get some NMCs on him, but at a 9 minus 2, forget it. You're not gonna break him. and if you do break them, it's not going to stay broken long anyway.
Hmm.
So I should have just concentrated more on what was actually coming in to fortify that guy, because all you have is a small or a MMG and a half squad there at the start of the game. So you're not going to do much damage to me, even if I can't do much damage to you. I mean, the other option would have been to try to actually put my men right into that location, and that might have been a better idea,
Hmm.
but it would have also been quite risky too. So that's, maybe next time.
Maybe. All right, free
Yep.
French turn number 3. My 9 minus 1 leader manages to come back to life and advance into a building, and now he is a considerable fire group, but not adjacent to my 9 minus 2, so they cannot combine firepowers. I I have a sizable force up the center, and now they're threatening your flank on your 8 minus 1 leader. We forgot to tell the folks that you generated some leaders
Yes.
with self rallies, 6+1s. They did some good. They weren't decisive, but I think they did some good.
Well, the one was decisive because he was the only squad left in the middle building, the center building,
Okay.
and so that was contested.
Hmm. All right.
But yeah, at this point, I'm starting to get nervous because yeah, I'm seeing you come in the center, and like I said, it's not really well defended. Fortunately, the group in N7 could also fire at what's coming at them from the center, so that was useful. And then the AT squad was able to come back, but was immediately DM'd again. But
Yeah.
hey, at least they're doing something. They're soaking up some damage that somebody else might be taking.
Right, you are, and I think at this point in German turn 3, it is a turning point in the game, and I'm about
Yes.
to make a mistake, and I didn't realize it until it was too late. All right, so let's on go. Do you want to mention anything more with respect to your German turn 3, or should we go on
Well,
to?
yeah, you're absolutely right. At this point, there's enough firepower that you DM the group in N7, and that really hurt me because now I don't have much there to stop you from coming at me,
Hmm.
and it's gonna, I can, and you were able to keep them DM'd, and that was part of the problem. I had to actually retreat further to get them back into the battle.
Okay. There's my mistake. Ultimately realized on turn 4 is I completely abandoned one flank and went all out into the center. And I think on your German turn 4 or 5, you'll tell our, our viewers what happened with respect to that. And Mills is a stone's throw away from joining up with Dunn and forming a fire group. And at this point, it's turn 4 out of turn, what is it, 6.5, 7?
Six,
And
I think it was. Yep.
yeah, and so I'm advancing my 648s and my 548s right into the street, advancing, not during movement phase, but advance where I have to wait until you're prep fire to get any any shots. So I'm starting to put some pressure, but will it be enough? German turn 4.
Yeah, and this is where, okay, you've abandoned my left flank, your right flank, and I'm like, well, I've got to get some troops up to protect that center building. So that's what I did. I was able to get some one of the squads, the squad with the LMG, back into the fight, and tossed them into the N7 location. So that was really good. But then the rest of that crew, I ended up taking back to the K8, K9 building,
Hmm.
which unfortunately was still in line of sight of some of your troops, and so you kept DMing them there. I was hoping you'd be too busy trying to fight the squads in the other buildings, and you'd leave that one alone, and they could rally. But that didn't happen.
All right, let's go on to French turn 5. So, subsequent to you reinforcing your center, we did what is customary when we're playing each other an advanced squad leader starter kit game. We slugged it out in close combat. We slugged it out in close combat. I am starting to put pressure on your right flank, moving up close. I realize that now with your 9-1 leader out of the picture, not completely forgotten, but out of the picture, I can come in up close and personal and start routing, at least routing the German MMCs out of one of my potential victory locations.
Yeah, exactly. At this point, I know, you know, I'm going to be lucky to hold on here. And that was pretty much the case. You leveraged me right out of the um, N7 building, pretty handily at that point because you had a heck of a good pile of power there. Um, yeah, and the for me, putting those two squads
Hmm.
into melee was a risk, but actually it worked out fairly well. So it was in, I think, P. Yeah. So I moved the squad from 05. There were two squads in there with that 6-1 leader. I moved it, one of them to P.
Four, I believe.
Yeah, P5 and P6, or 4 and 5.
Right.
And the one in P5 actually won his close combat, and then I think the one in 4, didn't he ELR one of your,
Maybe
or I'm
uh,
not ELR, but
half squad.
casualty reduced.
Yep,
Yeah,
yep, yep. Exactly. So close
so
combat,
that actually worked out pretty well for me.
it did. It didn't work out so well for me. Um, French turn 6. So we managed to get Mills up in K08. We managed to capture one building. We're in close combat in the other. And actually, at this point, I even forgot that I needed 4 buildings and not 3. Um, so I'm not sure if it would have made any difference because at that point, the casualty bin for the Allies was adding up, and as time transpires, your freedom of movement uh, decreases drastically. German turn 6.
Yeah, there wasn't much I could do at this point. Fortunately, like I say, I had what is it, Reiner, the 6+1 leader in
Mm-hmm.
that building.
Mm-hmm.
After your attacks, he was not broken, and so we just kind of played out a bit of this turn just to see what would happen, more or less. And I tried running the the leader in squad in M4.
Mm-hmm.
I tried running them across the street. They got DM'd. I tried running the troops from the P, what is it, P2. I tried running them across the street into that building. They got DM'd. So at the end of the game, everything was either in DM or close combat, um, for me, except for the one good leader.
Okay.
So I ended up getting lucky.
I don't think you ended up getting lucky. Um,
Okay.
so it what did I write there? CONASL? I don't know. I just concluding thoughts and lessons.
Yep.
Concluding thoughts and lessons. I don't know how Senior 16 just got into thoughts and lessons. Um, I think Dennis, the key to your victory. I'm stealing words out of your mouth. I think that if you recall what you wrote for your concluding thoughts and lessons learned was to have your AT guns and AA guns up front as much as possible. Um,
Yeah.
I think you did learn from my mistake because you did. We played this game twice. We reversed rules and you won on both occasions. Um, this game does favor the Free French, but at the same token, I think we discovered in this game that if you play the Germans right and you play the Free French incorrectly, like I did, then the Germans do stand a chance of winning. And what you wrote to me for your final thoughts with respect to the AT gun and the AA gun, where you placed them, um, they were a force to be contend with for any flanking attack. Um, so it was a victory well done and well fought, Dennis. Congratulations. And as you can see there, most of your casualties occurred towards the last turn on turn 6.
Oh
Um,
yeah. Yep.
and prior to that, I couldn't nudge you with all the firepower I could muster. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's I would have to agree with you. I was able to get pretty much all of my troops firing, from the first round on. The only one that really didn't was the one in '05, where he was kind of blocked on the other side of the hill. And in retrospect, maybe I should have pushed him up to '06, so he would have been able to do some firing as well. Because otherwise, I mean, he was just kind of sitting there for a good portion of the game, not doing anything. And that extra 4 firepower may have actually pushed something into a better position for me. I don't know, but yeah, it seems like if you're the Germans, you've got to have all your firepower out there and available. And yes, you're probably going to get hurt a little bit, but there's a lot of buildings behind you can duck into to try to rally.
All right. Um, Dennis, I'd like to thank you for sharing your thoughts and insights and helping me do this AAR. I think that,
Oh, it's fun.
of course, I think that a lot of players will find this knowledge insightful and probably help them up their game. It's always great playing with you. You're a scholar and a gentleman, and uh, the running joke with Dennis is for the longest time I've been telling him, Dennis, you roll like a Canadian. Great, great. And I've been dissing Americans a little bit. I have to admit, I have to go to confession here. And after a while, Dennis told me, George, I'm from Wisconsin. Oh God, did I put my both feet in my mouth? Well, Dennis, it's nice having you nearby as opposed to in the Midwest, and it's a pleasure
Yep.
playing with you, and
Yeah, it's
hopefully,
absolutely a pleasure playing with you, George.
we'll do more. All right,
I'm sure you will.
take care, everybody. Dennis, don't hang up. We're gonna play a scenario or two, okay?
Okay.